3-69 on page 86 of the mechanical drawing textbook. If you study this problem carefully, you'll notice it's a template for letter E, and they want you to draw it full size, but the total width here is 8 inches. Again, our template, our drawing area, you only have 7.5 inches, so we're going to have to scale this down. 3/4 size or 3/4 size will work fine. And there's a number of ways you can draw this drawing, but I'm going to continue to use the rectangle tool, and I am going to introduce the trim tool to you and how I use that in order to do this. If you look carefully, I can just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different rectangles, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to erase the pieces of the rectangles I don't need in order to show you this template for letter E. I need 2 rectangles that are going to be 1.5 inches wide by 5 inches high. I need 1 rectangle that's going to be 1.5 inches wide by, right here you've got 1 inch from the top, so I subtract 1 inch from 5, and I know this middle rectangle is going to be 4 inches high. And lastly, I need 2 rectangles that are going to be 1 3/4 inches wide by 1.5 inches high. So let's get going. All right, I said a rectangle. My first rectangle was going to be at 1.5, 5, and then my second rectangle was going to be 1 3/4 by 1.5. So I'm going to click to the bottom here, and I'm going to say at 1.75, 1.5. Is that right? Yeah. And my next one again is going to be 4 inches tall by 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to click another rectangle. I'm going to say at 1.5, 4. And then lastly, I can simply copy this rectangle. This is my base point. I can move this one there, and I can copy this rectangle. I can select that base point, move it over there. Now if you look, there's some things I have to delete in order to make this look like the one in the picture. Obviously I've got some lines down here that don't belong. So I am going to introduce what's called the trim tool. The trim command is this little horizontal line with a slash through it and 3 red dots off to the right. And basically all you have to do is left mouse click once and right mouse click once, and then you should be able to select your objects and they disappear. See that? They're gone. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously I'm having some problems here, so I'll go click the trim tool again. I'm going to click the objects, the 2 objects that make up the piece, and I'm going to right mouse click enter, and I'm going to delete the object. Stand by. My trim command wasn't working correctly, so I'm going to show you a different way to do this. Each one of these rectangles here, you can use the explode command. I'm going to highlight each one, click on one so the blue handles appear, and there's a little dynamite looking tool called the explode tool, and what that does is if I click the explode tool, it'll take my rectangles and turn them in all to the smaller objects that make up a rectangle, which are lines. So I click it, and now you notice that each one of these objects turn into a line. So that one I can delete. And this one in particular, you notice how it extends from up to bottom. I can take this blue handle and I can click on that blue handle and I can move it back to the endpoint. And I've got 2, now I can click on the bottom one, and because I had 2 rectangles overlapping one another, I got to do it twice. And so here I take this line and I move it up. Again, I had 2 rectangles over top one another, so I press escape, I click on this line and delete it, and now I can do the same thing over here. Grab that blue handle, move it up, press escape, click on that line, delete. There we go. Alright, so now I've got my template for letter E completed. I have to center it. Click the Move tool, highlight my E, find my midpoint, click on it once, find my other midpoint, click on it again. I'll delete my polyline and I'm done. Make sure that your object looks exactly like the one I have in the picture. Make sure your description is changed to template for letter E. Put in today's date and scale. Should be, again, we scaled that at 0.75 equal 1, so I have to change that. And click the Save command and save it as your first initial, last name, 3-69.